All right, good evening, 7:12 right now. The sun just set across Kansas City. Sunset officially was at 7:09. Still have some twilight, of course, as we look out over the plaza on what has been another really nice fall day in the Kansas City area. While our weather here has been amazing, we're watching what will be a devastating strike tonight from a very powerful, very dangerous hurricane in Hurricane Helene. So I'm going to do a deep dive on that. It's going to take me a little while to get through, but I just want to show you everything that we see with that storm, and then we'll tie it in with how it will impact our weather here at home. But certainly thinking about a lot of Americans that are under the threat of this bad storm tonight. So let's jump right to it. So Hurricane Helene, as of about 5:30, the hurricane hunters found they're flying out in it, and that's how we get the data update, that it is indeed a Category 4. The storm has rapidly intensified today. What you hate to see is that happen all the way up to landfall, which is what it's doing. So this storm's going to strengthen all the way up to the bitter end, and 130-mile-per-hour winds right now, and just a massive storm too, size-wise. It's really, really big. So here's the forecast cone. I'll show you that as it's going to, on final approach toward the Panhandle, the Big Bend area of Florida. And that's going to be within hours, 11 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock, something like that. They're already getting lashed with not the eye, but the intense bands that are getting closer to it. And then after that, it's going to drive north quickly. It's going to be a very fast-moving hurricane. It's going to bring inland impacts well away from the coast. And then by Friday and Saturday, it gets as close as it will ever get to us and fizzle out into a non-tropical low. It'll just become a standard low-pressure system, but a big one. And I'll show you what that means for us. One of the biggest things is storm surge. It's one of the biggest threats. Wind gets all the headlines with hurricanes, but the old saying is you hide from the wind, you run from the water, because the building codes there, these buildings, if they're modern, they're built after 1994, then they're built to withstand hurricane force winds like this. But you can't build to code for storm surge. Storm surge will wipe clean. I saw that with Hurricane Michael in 2018 when I was in Florida, and it wasn't the wind, it was the storm surge that wiped it clean in Mexico Beach there in the Panhandle of Florida. Up to 20 feet of storm surge is possible in that purple shaded area. The National Hurricane Center used the term unsurvivable storm surge, which they've only used that term one other time. That was in 2020 with Hurricane Laura. So it's as loud of a message as they can say that you cannot be there. You cannot be there and live to tell about it. It's just too dangerous. This is also one of the most vulnerable coastlines in the country for storm surge for a couple reasons. One is they've got really shallow waters here. It's a shallow shelf. That allows the waters to rise as the storm is blowing over the ocean and scooping up that water and pushing a surge out ahead of it. On the east coast of Florida, you've got a kind of a sharp shelf, and that helps minimize storm surge a little bit, but they've got a shallow shelf. It's also very low-lying there, very flat. And that allows the storm surge to drive inland up to 15, 20 miles away from the coast. You can still get storm surge. And then on top of that, the shape of the coast, if you see how it's got this bend to it, the Big Bend of Florida, that water goes in and it funnels together into points because it's trapped. It doesn't have anywhere to go, and that enhances the storm surge impacts there as well. And this is also pretty close to where Hurricane Michael had struck just, 6 years ago. That was Category 5. That's the one that I had seen personally. The other thing is, with the storm being so big, it's not just, where the center of the storm goes, where the cone is. It's got humongous impacts, far-reaching impacts. Storm surge possible from Tampa down to Marco Island, Key West, all the way up to Charleston. Could see some sort of storm surge out of this. So there's the wind field. Notice how the tropical storm force wind field, that's the yellow that you see, basically swallows all of Florida. It's 500 miles wide. So to put it in comparison, Hurricane Katrina was one of the largest hurricanes to strike the U.S., and it was 400 miles wide. This storm is bigger than Katrina by a full 100 miles. It's stronger than Katrina, too. Katrina was a Cat 5 when it was out in the Gulf of Mexico, but it weakened to a Category 3 before it made landfall. So this will be stronger and larger than Katrina. Let's show you the inland impacts. We've got hurricane warnings. I'm going to start this back over. We've got hurricane warnings all the way up. Now they just got extended. This map has not updated into the Atlanta metro. So this storm is just going to be booking. And when they get away from land, or from water rather, when they get away from water and get over land, they typically decay rather quickly. But this is going to be moving so fast, it won't have time to decay. So they will have an inland hurricane in Georgia in places where I can't remember them having that before. So it's not just a coastal storm. So let's show you that, because we've got So if you want to know what this is, the yellow is the tropical storm force wind field, roughly 40 miles per hour or more. Orange is hurricane force gusts to 75, and red is hurricane force sustained winds. That's the red circle that you see there. So we've got landfall tonight, and this is a big threat for Tallahassee. They're going to have a bad hurricane near or over Tallahassee. But Atlanta, the Royals are going to be playing the Braves tomorrow. That's the schedule. I don't see how they'll be able to do that. We've got a potential hurricane at 5 o'clock in the morning there, and then after this we're going to have a whole bunch of rain. That wind field's going to be very large. It's going to take time for that to move out, so I'll be blown away if the Royals are able to play baseball in Atlanta tomorrow. One more thing, and this usually gets swept under the rug among all the wind and the storm surge talk, and that is the flood threat, the inland rain flood threat. And this is a really, really big one with this. In fact, there you can see the radar. Radars are seeing the storm now. But look up away from the rain bands of the hurricane, and you've got this. It's been raining here for a couple days. This is what we call a PRE, a predecessor rain event. And it has already brought a 1,000-year flood to Asheville, North Carolina. And they've got a lot more on the way. The hurricane hasn't even made landfall yet. So this is as high of a flood risk as the National Weather Service can issue. This is very rare, and this is a big one. It goes from the panhandle of Florida into the Atlanta metro. So that's another problem for the Royals. Extreme flooding is possible. And then into the western part of the Carolinas. So here's the deal. They've already seen up to a foot of rain in some spots. And they're going to tack on, as this comes through, maybe double. They could see potentially near 2 feet of rain in some locations. So this is just a really big flood threat there too. So you could get landslides. They're going to have mandatory evacuations. Just bad. All right. So it's got it all. The storm is just about as bad of a look as you can get, other than where it looks to make landfall is not a highly populated area. There are people there, but the Big Bend of Florida is generally not too heavily populated. So hopefully there's nobody there at all. Now, what does it mean for us here in Kansas City? Well, let's track it here on Forecast Track, because I mentioned this is going to be a really big storm, and even though it will decay by this time tomorrow, it will no longer be a hurricane or a tropical system. Look how far it slings its moisture. You can see rain is close to southeast Missouri. We'll get into clouds tomorrow. That's going to be what we'll notice. We've had a string of sunshine. Now we're going to get the clouds, and it will be the upper shield of that decaying or dead hurricane that will be well off to our east. By Saturday, it's on out of here. Saturday is going to be just beautiful. The other thing is, look how big this thing is the wind. All right, so this is the wind gust that I'm showing you. Breezy across the eastern half of the country, if not downright windy. And what's that mean for us? You'll notice the gust. It'll be about 25, maybe 30 miles per hour. Not horrible, a little breezy and some cloud cover. That's the bottom line. It influences our weather, but not big impacts. So this evening, currently we're at 75. Beautiful night here in Kansas City. Light east breezes. Next 12 hours look just great. All right, so we're going to be in the 60s for much of your evening, and then the 50s by early tomorrow morning. I think tomorrow morning may look like it will rain, but I do not expect rain. Mid-50s, about what we've been seeing here lately, maybe a little bit warmer. Again, here's your Friday morning as we time that out for you. 50s and 60s and cloud cover. Should be dry. Don't think you'll need the umbrella. And let's get you the 7-day. There's the 7-day. So Saturday, you're at 80. Sunday at 79. Nice looking weekend. Monday's the warm one in the forecast. So let me show you Monday here. If I can get this to pop out. There we go. So Monday, we could conceivably hit mid or maybe even some upper 80s in some spots because we're out ahead of a front. This will be our next fall front, though, and behind it we get a pretty good shot of cool air. So you'll feel that by Tuesday. Tuesday we'll drop back into the 60s. I'll get you the full 7-day, my face off of there. So brief little drop down, and then we're back into the mid-70s. It's a good-looking forecast. We have a nice 7-day here in KC. But just thinking about everybody down on the Gulf states and in the Appalachian area, Georgia. I mean, again, a lot of people under the gun for tonight, so be thinking about them. In the meantime, enjoy our rather quiet weather. We're going to be bringing you the updates as we get to 10 o'clock, both with Helene and anything that we see that changes here locally. Have a great night. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you at 10.